Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm happy to share my experience with you as an educator of 31 years and to explain what we have done here at MVLA to future-proof our IT infrastructure and just a formula that's working really well for us, and hoping that this will give you some insights to help your districts grow as well. Real quick, just about me. This is my 31st year serving public education. I started off as a classroom teacher and a teacher on special assignment. And I did that for 12 years and really great experience there. I then was a site administrator for 6 years, and probably the most formative 6 years of my career because I was able to work on a really solid team, and we were able to shift culture and really focus on what was best for students. And everything we did was based on the WASC action plan and goals that were established by the entire school community. And this is now my 13th year as a director of technology. This is the second district I've worked in, and I'm starting my 7th year here at MVLA. I'm also a certified chief technology officer through Sept, which is the California Information Technology and Education Organization. And the certification is the only CTO certification recognized by the California Department of Education. So it was really a robust program that really helped me grow exponentially as an educator and as a director. So when I look at how districts are using technology, I always try to keep certain things in mind. So when deploying any new technology or any technology in general, I always think first, is it consistent with other tools we provide? So are people getting a similar experience when they go to start using this tool? Does it integrate with other services and tools that we use? When tools tend to be standalone, and there's certain things teachers have to do, like they need a separate login, they have to follow a certain number of steps, gets really convoluted, not too great. And lastly, and most importantly, is it easy to use? I've found in my career that when things are not easy to use, they don't get used. And that can go as easy as your email provider, simple, your tool used for taking attendance, or even more administrative tools such as what are you using for your video safety system, access controls, network tools, things of that nature. So I have a simple mantra: consistent, integrated, and easy to use. And you'll hear that throughout my presentation today. So I always like to start with the why. Why do we have standards when we talk about our IT infrastructure? So our technology is ubiquitous across campuses. It's everywhere. And this little graphic is just showing, students and, a teacher up at a presentation station, and, students with computers in front of them. So right now we're dealing with situations where nearly every student has a device. If they're not a one-on-one district, maybe the school is allowing students to bring devices, they're providing devices, smartphones are everywhere. So that this is just the reality of the world we live in. Classroom technology, we have projection, we have sound systems, we have wireless projection, we have document cameras and printers. How are we managing all this stuff? We have our Wi-Fi infrastructure, our network infrastructure. How are we accessing that and maintaining that? And then we look at the other side of the coin, and we need professional development around this, not just for the users, but think about our teaching staff and our support staff. If we're not providing our teachers and support staff with the tools and the time how to use these tools, are they going to get used? Are these tools that we're adopting going to make a difference in the teaching and learning process? That should always be at the forefront of our decision making. Is the IT department going to be able to support all of this stuff? And we're now in this crazy world of IT security. We are all at the brink of a ransomware event, a crypto event, and it's going to be driven by a human error. So how are we avoiding that from happening? So if you take a look at this, all these devices, all this infrastructure, how are we supporting that? How are we making sure that the team, the IT team, can support that? It's a very big operation that schools and districts are running now. So there's a lot of lessons that I've learned throughout my career. As I mentioned earlier, this is my 7th year at MVLA. But in 2013, this district went through a FMA study. And if you're not from California, or if you are from California, You may have heard of FICMAT. It is the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team. And this is a organization out of Sacramento, and they help districts that are having challenges, mostly when districts are falling into situations with funding and they're underwater and they aren't able to provide payroll. There are the resources to keep their districts afloat. But you can also call FICMAT to come in and say, hey, our maintenance department needs to be reviewed. Our technology department needs help. Please come in and study and give us suggestions on how we can get better. And in 2013, there was a lot of challenges occurring in MVLA's technology department, and that prompted the superintendent at the time to have a FICMAT study done. As a result of that FICMAT study, these were some of the key findings and recommendations. And the FICMAT team was comprised of 4 people, and it was a 35-page document of recommendations and findings. I'm not going to read it to you, obviously, but what the team recommended was the standardized technology being used, to use reputable companies like Dell and HP to stop building their own computers. Believe it or not, the IT department was physically building their own machines, which was creating a lot of points of failure. Properly train your technicians. Technicians weren't being trained and were kind of running rogue. Document IT practices. Nothing was being documented, so there was no consistency there as well. There wasn't any long-term planning for acquiring, installing, or sustaining the IT infrastructure. There was no universal virus or malware detection across all endpoints. There's pretty much no consistent practice. There wasn't a help desk system for users to ask for help, to request help. And there wasn't any collaboration with the educational services division in the district. So IT was really standing alone. And they also recommended to create and maintain an IT/ed tech committee. So stop working as a silo, but instead start working as a system. So really solid recommendations from this FICMAT study. Another painful lesson came about. So I'm going to fast forward to 2017. I'm still not here. But none of the FICMAT recommendations were implemented. That's really unfortunate because the FICMAT study can cost a district anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000. But in 2017, the district and teacher unions settled on professional practice money when the contract was settled. And every teacher was given $1,300 to spend on any technology they desired. Mountain View Los Altos did not have any technology standards at this time, so you can only imagine what people were doing. And the IT department at that time did not touch one device that was purchased. So people would go out and they would buy a device on Amazon or Best Buy, you name it, they would buy it and they would simply turn in a receipt and they would get reimbursed up to $1,300. No endpoint or malware protection went on any of these devices. So again, IT didn't touch this. It was literally the wild, wild west. There wasn't any accountability. So not only was the IT department not touching this, the IT department was allegedly supposed to maintain all this equipment. So not a really good formula here. So a new era of MVLA came in, and it was painful at first. So I started Mountain View Los Altos in September of 2019. And this is just a very brief timeline of my first few months here. And one vendor I worked with, my former district, I had emailed all the vendors I worked with, and I had a really positive reputation with many of them. And one reached out to me and she said, you have everything, MVLA has everything dialed in. You have nothing to worry about. So here I am traveling 15 miles south from my former district. And I'm thinking, wow, am I going into Disneyland? This is going to be great. So here comes day one. There were 10 network SSIDs being broadcast, 10 different networks you can connect to. And I got out my iPhone. And I said to one of the members of the IT department, I said, which one do I connect to? They said, oh, you can connect to any of them. This is the password to get onto it. So not a good practice right away. None of the devices had endpoint protection. So easy for a malware event to happen. There were 453 open help desk tickets. So actually, I should go back one step. From the FICMAT study, a help desk was brought in. But many of these help desk tickets that were not being attended to were related to poor network connectivity. And this teachers are complaining, I cannot stay connected to the network. I cannot teach my class, and nobody was responding to these. In October 2019, after I'd been there for a little bit over a month, we received permission from the board of trustees to upgrade the network. And we started working with a value-added reseller who was a fantastic integrator that we still work with, and to upgrade the network. We also purchased endpoint protection to roll out to all of our devices. We realized that we were playing with fire, and I told the superintendent at the time, I was really worried that there could be a ransomware event. In January of 2020, my worst nightmare came true, and we were hit with a ransomware event, and there was no disaster recovery plan. I was going to the gym. It was 5:30 in the morning. I got called by the assistant superintendent of personnel services, and she said, "Hey, I just got a message from Google that my password was changed." I said, "Uh-oh." And sure enough, we got nailed. Many key services were taken out. We had an on-premises server that some employees had up to 20 years of files on, completely encrypted. We had a on-premises phone server, completely encrypted. And we had to work with the FBI, local law enforcement, and their recommendations are not to engage with the threat actors. So we did not do that, and none of this we were able to recover. And then March 2020, as everybody knows, COVID came and distance learning. Classrooms at the time, there was no consistency, there was failing projection, there's various personalized sound systems teachers are using. So it was pretty much survival of the fittest. Teachers were doing anything they could just to get by. So as Steve Jobs says, sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick, but don't lose faith. So throughout this, I just figured I cannot lose faith. So the silver lining of COVID for me was that there was nobody on campus. So we started working really hard to rebuild the network. We did some wiring standards right away. We're going to rebuild everything. And we took a look at our network closets that looked like rainbow spaghetti, and now we cleaned them all up. So we have a very succinct wiring standard that, with uninterruptible power sources and power distribution to make sure this network is going to stay up. And with the color-coded wiring schemes, we know what is what, so it makes it easier for troubleshooting. We took the time to do things cleanly and correctly, working with the correct vendor on this. But then we looked at classrooms because there's a challenge here. There's inconsistency across the district. It was almost impossible for the IT staff to maintain the equipment. They'd go from one classroom to the next and nothing was the same. The teachers who were sharing classrooms were left guessing. They'd go from one classroom doing one thing, the next classroom was a completely different setup. So the solution was with staff input, we wanted to create a flexible learning environment and deploy tools that were, again, consistent, integrated, and easy to use. So we came up with this model that we're now in our 5th year, and it's working really nicely. And staff can choose between a MacBook Pro or a Dell Latitude notebook, and they dock up to number 2 there, which is a 23-inch docking station monitor. So they have a larger screen once they're actually in their classroom. They can take their portable device home with them and from classroom to classroom, to the teacher workroom whenever they want to meetings, et cetera. They just connect to either of the devices to a USB-C. So again, Mac or Windows, but they can use it with the docking station. They have an external keyboard and mouse. Every classroom has a Epson short throw projector that's interactive, but that does have dual purpose because they can turn that off and they have a whiteboard there. So it works as your traditional whiteboard. Every classroom on number 4 here has Lightspeed TopCat audio, which is a evenly distributed audio system, and a teacher can actually wear a microphone, and that way they can save their voice, and everything is evenly distributed because students cannot hear or cannot learn if they can't hear, and any media played through their device is also distributed evenly through that speaker. They have either an IPEVO or a hovercam document camera. We have wireless document cameras that make things more flexible. We have Vivi wireless projection, so you can project from any operating system. So you don't have to be tethered behind your docking station monitor. You could have an iPad. Many of our math teachers have iPads, and they can walk around and they can project wirelessly through their Epson projector to the Vivi device. Vivi also doubles as as signage, so digital signage throughout our campuses. In like our locker rooms, students walk in and there's a big TV there, and we have a Vivi digital signage going on, where the PE teachers share a slideshow and they just put in where the students go to each respective teacher. Like Mr. Jones's class goes to the gym, Mr. Smith's class goes out to the track, etc. They just update that every day. As the students get ready to go out to PE, they just look up at the screen, they know where to go. And yes, some teachers still like to print, so we do have a printer standard as well. But this model here has worked really well. There's no set, the teachers don't have to worry about where they're going. They have the flexibility. And with Vivi, teachers can also, students can request to screen share. Teachers give that permission. So students can also project. They get that experience for presenting, and they can also use the second mic, and they can save their voices as well. So we're really happy with this model. Teachers love it. We've received a lot of positive feedback. We've even had neighboring districts follow this model. We also had to update our server infrastructure and our security. So we had to implement new servers. When I arrived here, MVLA was on Windows Server 2003. So I got here in 2019, it was on server 2003. There weren't even any updates for that. So we had to do some work there. So we now use Nutanix, and most servers are virtualized up in the cloud, which is a complete no-brainer in my opinion now. We do daily, weekly, and monthly backups with assured data protection of all of our Nutanix servers. And we have a disaster recovery plan in place with assured data protection. If anything was to happen again with ransomware or malware, assured data protection guarantees us that we will be up in 2 to 3 hours. When we got hit back in January 2020, we were down for almost a week. Our Google instance still worked, but it was not a pleasant experience. I would not wish that on anybody. We have endpoint malware protection on all of our devices, every student's device, every teacher's device, all of our servers. We have a network policy manager. We use HP Aruba ClearPass. So even if a student or staff member is using a non-district owned device, if they use their own device, once they log into our network and they now use their own credentials to log into the network, we don't use pre-shared password, so we know who's on our network and when. But if they're on their own device, it downloads a security certificate to protect the machine and the network. We have standard operating procedures for our acceptable use policies, how our accounts are set up. We have an organization chart that we look at. Every year, we make sure that we review and update our standards, our wiring standards, camera, you name it, our classroom technology. We stay on top of it regularly, and we get input from all of our stakeholders, especially our IT team. Just some testimonials here. This actually is my favorite one. This is a Spanish teacher at one of our schools, and always having problems in her classroom. And she just said in an email, I just want to thank you for taking care of Wi-Fi and projectors here. It works every single day. And as a director of IT and a former classroom teacher, there's really not much more I can ask for. And this other one's this a teacher saying that, he didn't even rely on technology because it always failed. And now it just feels good that he doesn't have to worry about that. And as a former classroom teacher, I always remember having plan B. What is my plan B if technology fails? Well, I'm glad to say our teachers don't have to worry about that, because even if our network goes down, we have a backup fiber ring, so we should never have that situation. We have backup power. We've thought of everything. Here are a few key items that I recommend to have. Of course, have a help desk. It's really important to me as an IT director, and I preach this to the IT team that I have the privilege of supervising and guiding and leading, but we need to be responsive. Teachers, staff members need to be heard. They need to know we are working on their issue. Also, as an IT director, an accurate inventory matters. We cannot work blindly as leaders. We need to know what's out there and where. And we use a tool that is scaled for K-12 education. It's called Incident IQ. And it not only serves as our help desk, but also serves as our asset management system. Because we have that, everything is asset tagged. We know where it is on campus or who it is checked out to. Because that, it helps us track what work we perform on devices. So if we're having a projector that keeps having the same issue, we can report to Epson, hey, we've done this, and this to the projector. It keeps failing. We have a 4-year warranty. Please send another one out. But again, not working blindly, and it really assists with a refresh cycle. So our staff members who, when they get their machine, they get that device for 4 years. But I can easily come into Incident IQ and I can pull a report. Once a year I do this. I know whose device is reaching that 4-year life cycle. And I just email the teachers, complete this Google form. You're at the end of life. This is your current device. Please let us know what your preference is. Your new device will be ready before the school year ends. We have them swap it out, and then they have the whole summer to set it up, get familiar, and then they kick off the school year with a new one. But also helps with our Chromebook inventory. Our projectors in the classroom, we have all laser, which are great. They usually last 7 to 10 years, 20,000 hours, but we need to be ready so we can run all these reports. Just we know where everything is. Just to share some lessons learned, excuse me real quick. One thing that's really important to me is knowing the difference between cost and value. And in K-12 public education, we're often met with this challenge. We always look for the lowest cost, but we don't always get the best value. And I have to say this, e-waste accumulates quickly. So just because we're buying the best, maybe the lowest price, doesn't mean we're buying the best product. So my suggestion is buy the best product and find ways to phase it in and make your dollars, stretch your dollars as long as they can. I've seen so many situations where a district will buy, well, this is all we can afford. And if they did a total cost of ownership, I guarantee you, they could have taken a different path. Another really important thing I've learned is to invest in partners and not vendors. Everybody wants our business, right? I get hit by 10 to 15 vendors a week, maybe even more. I have 4 or 5 partners I work with, and they are amazing. I mean, they've helped us with the wiring standards. They've helped us develop the standards in the classroom. This is not my brainchild. This is collective input from our partners and the IT team I get to work with every day. There's no way I could have done all this alone. There's no way I'd have all this knowledge. But having the right partners that you trust and work with and help you grow, that is essential. And we always have to embrace flexibility to ensure scalability. You want to future proof. You want to invest in products that the company is looking ahead. And I'm going to speak more to that in a second. But again, always think consistent, integrated, and easy to use. Other lessons learned on part B. You need to know your district's culture. And this is a tough lesson. I've got to say that when I switched from my former district to this district, I had a lot of success in my former district, and I was there for 24 and a half years and never thought I would leave, but a great opportunity came up when I came down here, and I figured, I'm going to do this, this, and this when I get to MVLA, and I'm going to, take the world by storm. And my God, I was like hit by a brick wall because 15 minutes down the freeway, completely different culture. You really need to know your district's culture because culture eats strategy for breakfast. You could think you're coming with the best strategy, know what's going on your campuses, know what the teachers are like, know what the leadership's like, start slowly and build up, earn people's trust before you try to throw out all the ideas for change. Change is never easy. It needs to be communicated. Are there budget challenges? I mean, we all have budget challenges, right? So phase in ed tech tools and equipment. Maybe you just want to start in a certain department, a certain discipline. Build teacher leaders. Teachers, you're going to know who your technology users are. And that's also been a challenge because sometimes we feel like we're always drawing on the same teachers to do the same, hey, here's a new tool to try. We're always drawing the same people. How do we build that community of the professional learning community? So try to build more capacity among your staff. And lastly, you got to stay the course. I know it's easy in life to give up, but in reality, staying the course it's really going to get you over the finish line. And don't lose track of that vision. So know the culture, try to overcome the challenges, face things in slowly, and stay the course. And Steve Jobs, I know he probably wasn't the best human being, but he was a brilliant human being. But technology really is nothing. What's important is having the faith in people, because people are basically good and smart, and you give them the tools, they can do wonderful things with them. So think about that as you phase in the new technologies, build your standards, and build that resiliency. Here's a bonus slides. We all face challenges, right? So I like to talk about, building that resiliency and future proofing. So we use Verkada as our full physical security. And the reason why I'm showing this slide here is because of the integration, the consistency, the integration, and the easy to use. When I got here to MVLA, we had a legacy video system that we owned the cameras, but we rented the server who hosted the cameras. Didn't make sense. $50,000 a year. If the camera went down, they would charge for it. They would charge to come out and clean the domes of the camera. The quality wasn't good. They didn't even provision the users correctly, so pretty much anybody can access it. We couldn't share footage with law enforcement if that was needed. And then they adopted access control for doors with a different system. We'll get to that in a second. But with Verkada, I can get to all my different products in one click of the button. So I can get to my cameras, I can get to my access control, I can get to my air quality, also known as vape detectors. If we have a situation where a student is caught vaping and the detector goes off, I click a link and I can see that incident on camera as a student comes out of a restroom. And then you can have that educational conversation with the student. We have the guest check-in so we know who's on campus. That integrates with the cameras. Really smart thinking. And this is just a screenshot here. You can see this is the parking lot behind our tech building. And this is just me. If I was to play this video for you, this is a still shot, but you can actually point two cameras at every door and you would actually see you would see the live recording of me walking in and badging into our IT shop. That happens as we have 500 of these locks across our campuses. Really good safety feature. You can get doors on schedules. But this is just a bonus slide I put in here because one of the leaders in our district was talking about as we integrated locks and cameras, this email, I'm not going to read it to you, but he talked about how we didn't want to integrate locks and doors together because that's more expensive and it sounded cool, but how can we justify that cost? And if we really need to know who's going to open a door, we can look at the card reader software and then we can go to the camera software. That's maintaining two systems. You're not integrating, you're actually spending more money. I could prove that through a total cost of ownership. So we really need to think ahead. We got to think about the systems you adopt, especially with a system like Verkada that has AI features that are making your campuses safer, because nothing's more important than the safety of your students and staff. But in summary, how would you respond to this? We'd want something integrated. But these are some links I want to share with you. I know we're coming up on time and there's going to be a Q&A at the Meet the Speaker session. But feel free to reach out with your email. This is my LinkedIn profile and just some links. I know that Matt indicated that these presentations will be available, but I'm on the Active Listener podcast, how we talked about our success with classroom audio. Some of our teachers, that's like having that microphone, that is their lifeline. We even had a teacher who went through throat cancer and he wouldn't have been able to teach if he didn't have that audio projection, distributed audio in his classrooms. But these are some articles we've been in, and actually we were recently on the news, NBC News Bay Area, talking about our cloud video safety powered security system throughout our campuses. So we feel like we're really in a good position to leverage safety, future-proof in our district for many years to come. And as an IT director, I'm really proud of the work we've done as a district. I know it's not perfect, but it's really working really well for our district's culture. And I feel confident knowing that if I was to leave tomorrow, the team I work with, they could pick it up and keep moving it forward, because that's the kind of team we've built and the capacity we've built. And I hope that this has helped everybody who's attending today to have that vision for your school district and to move things forward. So thank you very much for your time.